Hey everyone, Wayne Fox back with another video. I started this one before I came down fairly sick. My voice isn't still quite back to normal, but it's getting there, and I thought, I want to get this video wrapped up. It's not going to be a very long one. Recently, I've done a few videos about MacBook Pros, comparing various generations and even comparing them to the 2013 Mac Pro, and just trying to decide, okay, at what point is it worth upgrading? When will you see a significant enough jump in performance? And this is specifically for photographers that are using Lightroom and Photoshop. The thought occurred to me, does an eGPU really help? Now, when I bought the 2018 Mac Pro, I assumed I needed an eGPU because I was replacing a Mac Pro and I wasn't going to use the Mac Pro anymore. And that Mac Pro had twin FirePro 500 graphics cards, pretty powerful, even still in 2018 relative to what portables have. So I bought it. I bought a Vega 56, I think was the model I bought. And I've used it ever since, and I've really never thought about if it really helps. Now, I know in some cases it definitely does help, but most of the time I see that in video work. I'm not sure it really helps much in Lightroom or Photoshop. And as if you watch any of my other tests between the various generations of MacBook Pros or the Mac Pro itself, which I've got linked right up there, it's pretty obvious from those tests, as I captured in the screen, that the GPU really isn't playing much of a role with either of those programs. I'm going to test Capture One because I've heard that it has more significance in Capture One, although I'm not sure if that has to do with the develop and the raw processing part as far as what you see on the screen, or in the tasks that take a long time, like exporting a lot of files. So we'll give that a test. But anyway, if you're running some video work, especially if you're running Apple video work, if you're using Apple Final Cut Pro or some of those others, I think that it might have a lot of appeal. I don't even think Premiere accesses the external GPU at this point. Several programs like ScreenFlow, the one I use, I know it does not access the external GPU, so it doesn't help much at all. But I do use Compressor quite a bit to take my files that I capture straight from my camera and get them to a more usable size, and it definitely helps with Compressor. Anyway, what I did was I just ran the same 6 tests I run with all the other computers, 5 Lightroom tests and then 1 test in Photoshop. I've already done them on those 2 machines without the eGPU, so I just ran them with the eGPU attached, and we're just going to compare the times and results right here real quick. It won't take long, and just if you want me to spoil the party, probably not. I don't think it's worth any money. Now, I'll throw a kind of a kink in there. In my case, because I'm running 2 external 30-inch displays, one of them now a 4K display, I think having the eGPU might be valuable. Now, it's not really to help Lightroom and Photoshop. It's just simply to handle those 2 big displays and to try to not to get laggy. So anyway, let's just look at the data and just give you an idea what the eGPU does. Okay, so the first test we run is to import 500 Sony A7 R4 files. The previews are set to sidecar and embedded, and we're copying them from an external SSD to the internal SSD. And the reason we do this is to simulate sort of a normal import where you're actually copying the files and doing it as quickly as possible, and that's the quickest way to do it without building previews. Here we find that the eGPU had very little difference. It actually helped a tiny bit with the 2018 MacBook Pro, saved about 9 seconds, I think. Actually took a couple seconds longer with the 16-inch MacBook Pro. That just could be a phenomenon of me actually hitting the start and go button. So not much help there. Next, we make one-to-one previews of those 500 files. And here we see that the eGPU saved about 6 seconds on the 16-inch MacBook Pro, and it actually took longer by about, I don't know, what's that, 20 seconds or so longer on the 2018 MacBook Pro. So not only did it not help, it hurt a little bit. Again, neither case significant enough to worry about. Next, we export all those files to 4,000 pixel long JPEGs at JPEG 60 without any modification in the develop module. And here again, we see that it made very little difference. It did help a little bit with the 2018 MacBook Pro. We saved about 35-40 seconds, a little bit, so probably, 4 or 5% maybe. Neither of them are significant enough to be concerned with. It didn't hurt enough or help enough to worry about. Now what we do is apply a small develop module change to all 500 files. Basically, we do 10 dust spots, a couple of graduated filters, and a few global changes. This is accomplished by using the original XMP sidecar file of the first file I modified and syncing it to all 500 files. So when I do this test, every file always has the exact same develop module presets. And again, we see it takes substantially longer, almost 3 times longer to export a developed file as it does an undeveloped file. And here we see that on the 16-inch MacBook Pro, the eGPU did absolutely nothing. I think the difference is a few seconds, 5 seconds. And it actually hurt with the 2018 MacBook Pro. It took about 5% longer, went from 29 minutes and 47 seconds to 31 minutes and 26 seconds. So it actually hurt by a couple minutes. Not really a good sign. The next test was the one that still has me completely baffled. This is creating 5 panorama merges with the Lightroom's new batch merge command. These are from Phase 1 IQ 180 digital back, so they're 80 megapixel files. And the panoramas vary from 6 to 12 images total. And here you can see with a 16-inch MacBook Pro, the difference is insignificant. With a 2018 MacBook Pro, the eGPU just, for some reason, totally killed it. We went from a reasonable time of about 7 minutes and 50 seconds, and it went all the way to 37 minutes. So it added 30 minutes to this test. And this, I just don't understand at all. I tried this test. I actually ran this test 3 times. I ran it without the eGPU 3 more times just to confirm that I was doing everything right. The times were within a few seconds of each other each time I did it. So obviously, whatever is going on here, this is a problem that's similar to the 2019 MacBook Pro had with importing files from a GFX 100. I found that the Fuji GFX 100 files did not import into the 19-inch MacBook Pro, and I could never find an explanation for it. They were fine in the 2018 and on the 16-inch MacBook Pro, but took 3 times longer on the 19-inch MacBook Pro. And it was only the Fuji GFX 100 files. Well, this is kind of the same thing. Obviously, this means that if you actually want to have a GPU and you're going to do that with the 28 MacBook Pro, you might want to disable it. At this point, it looks like you would disable the eGPU for Lightroom for most of the tasks that we're doing. Now, I don't know about other tasks. It might still help with the develop module. I really can't figure out a really good test to see if the new change in the latest Lightroom actually does anything different in the develop module. I've watched a few videos on it, and it still isn't real conclusive to me. Anyway, obviously, score 1 against an eGPU for Lightroom there. And the last test was to run Puget Systems 2019 Photoshop benchmark test. And here you can see that both computers, it actually hurt a little bit. The 16-inch MacBook Pro, it took, 9 seconds longer, so, not a big deal. And on the 2018 MacBook Pro, it took about 17 seconds longer. So really insignificant. Now, I did verify in Photoshop that that was the GPU that it was using. And so I don't know if maybe that Vega 56 GPU, I need to do some research, because when I bought it, it sounded quite a bit more powerful than the one that was in the MacBook Pro. And I do know that when I do something in some of the video programs, I can definitely tell a difference between having that eGPU connected and not. So it seems like it should be helping. Well, there you have it. It looks like if you're just using Lightroom and Photoshop, an eGPU is not much of a sound investment. Whether or not it helps in my case, because I have the 2 large displays, I don't know. They look good. I assuming it's helping me. I've read online that an eGPU does help if you've got large displays, especially if they're 4K. I'm debating on replacing my NEC 302 with another BenQ 321. I'm really liking this display. I did a full video on this in the 27-inch version. Might want to check those out. I'll throw a link there and maybe down in the description. But anyway, if you're doing some video work as well, especially if you're using Apple software such as Final Cut Pro, I think the eGPU might help. There are several videos online about that. I suggest you research those. I think I've even seen one where they specifically test an eGPU on a MacBook Air or something like that. And I don't know at what point the eGPU and what eGPU actually need to surpass what the MacBook Pro has in it. Now, obviously, if you can get a super powerful eGPU, it might make a difference in this test. I don't know. Lightroom and Photoshop are supposed to be using that GPU for something, and of course, maybe in a year from now, they will use it better. I don't know. I think there's been a problem because of Apple's transition towards metal, and some of the non-Apple companies that are doing software just haven't really embraced that and spent the money to really utilize those changes. I know that Adobe products claim they're using metal, but to be honest, Premiere doesn't look like it. Premiere is really slow on a Mac for some reason, and it just seems like it's crippled, a little bit like Photoshop. Anyway, hey, thanks for watching the video. Encourage you to subscribe to the channel down there. I've got a couple of cool Lightroom videos coming up in the next couple of weeks, and I'm excited to get those done. And until next time, hey, see ya.